This is the Roundtable Talk Podcast, brought to you in part by Rayford Guns, the Hoke County edition of the North State Journal, the Libra Initiative of North Carolina, and our flagship station, WCLN Christian 105.7. And now here are your hosts, Ruben Castellon and Chris Holland.
All right, this is Ruben Castellon, and welcome to episode 148.
148. This is Chris Holland. And today's episode, if you guys saw it on Facebook last night, we have North Carolina House District 48 candidate, Dr. Ralph Carter, came into the studio today to talk about his ideas for the future of the state as well as the district. And so we want to go ahead and introduce Dr. Ralph Carter, and if you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm a lifelong North Carolinian. Grew up in Wilmington, went to Chapel Hill and Wake Forest for all my medical school stuff and college. Spent 4 years in the Air Force. That's the only time I was out of the state. And then came back to land in Laurinburg, and I've been here working doing orthopedics for 36 years. So I've been serving this district for 36 years. And I'm ready to continue to do that in another capacity. Now, I'm a conservative Christian candidate. That's how I'm going to vote. Okay, but I think that my particular skills in my area of expertise are particularly needed at this time, and I'm talking about medicine and public health. I've been on the Board of Health and chairman of the Board of Health down there in Scotland County, and I've been involved in the administration of the hospital down there on Board of Trustees and clinical quality chairman, all that kind of thing. So I know a fair amount about not just doing orthopedics, but medicine in general. And I'd have to say that the COVID debacle, I'll call it, was really a wake-up call for me that spiked my interest in doing something like this to continue to serve people of this district.
Well, thank you. This is not the first time around. We met a while back, and I just want to say that, unfortunately, you didn't get in the last time for District 48. But I tell you what, I do believe that what you're saying is a lot of people believe that, but and support. One of the things that we need to make sure everybody knows is that in case if you're listening to us right now, what you need to know right now is that District 48 covers two counties, Hoke County in Scotland County. So Dr. Ralph Carter is representing, should he be elected, Hoke County and Scotland County.
Yes, all of both counties. Exactly.
Correct. Yeah, you look at all the squiggly lines on district maps, but we're fortunate that we have two whole counties in one district. Mm-hmm. We don't have to worry about party lines across dividing counties and stuff like that. So you were talking about, your unique experiences and knowledge. What do you think that one of the biggest issues facing the state right now?
You gave us that question ahead of time, and that was yesterday. And I listened to two relatively long reports that had to do with the things that came out yesterday about the food pyramid and vaccine schedule. I'm convinced that the biggest issue facing not only our state, but our district and our nation is the rapidly deteriorating health of our population, particularly our children. And I think it's at a crisis point. It's an existential crisis. It's similar to the threat from the Chinese, although that could be certainly a lot more immediate. The rate of exponential rate of chronic diseases overtaking us is the biggest economic and health issue and issue facing our country, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would echo that if you look at the studies from childhood to elderly, the nation at writ large is at our most unhealthy time that we've ever been. So it was kind of neat that I saw talking about the food pyramid, it basically flipped it on its head, literally, and said that some of that stuff that, causes high cholesterol and heart disease and this and that. Now they're saying that that's good for you. So, I enjoy it. I like a good steak and a piece of barbecue chicken.
Yeah, I got a graphic, and I'm going to show it because it's so colorful. But yes, we got steak and chicken and broccoli, avocados and bananas and all that up top. And what's at the bottom? Bread. And this is better than a slice of bread. But just make sure if you have bread, it needs to be without preservatives, all that kind of stuff. And not too much of it. Not too much of it.
There you go.
But it's an amazing thing that happened yesterday.
And you know what it is that just to be crystal clear is that you got two things as it relates to. Of course, when I ran on students because I didn't think the students were getting a proper education. Besides that, in our time, we didn't get that many vaccines. In my time, when I was in high school, I don't remember eating chips. I don't remember drinking sodas. I grew up in a period where I don't drink sodas, and it's because the way I was raised, what we were fed in the public school system, and I remember I don't even remember even being exposed to pizza. Today, it's a regular thing, and so when you flip the pyramid to where it's all carbohydrates, and to add to that is that you got fast food restaurants open 24/7. Very unhealthy. You look at pictures every once in a while on Facebook. You have pictures, some memes about the 1970s and early 80s, where the beaches were covered with nothing but, in comparison today, skinny people. Like they might even be border anorexic, and then you compare it today. It's like it's just completely different. And I think that the government, federal government, along with big pharma, had a lot to do with that because it's a profit. To be sick is a profit.
You touched on a lot there for sure. I can tell you that our obesity rate right now amongst our children is 5 times what it is in France. 77% of the children, of the people, not children, young adults of military age cannot physically qualify to be in the military.
Yeah.
And that's a national
to pass the
security
minimum
issue.
standards.
Yeah, exactly. And they've lowered some of the standards. So it's a quite a thing, and it's multifactorial. And what would I do about it? Well, the first thing I thought, the easy thing, you're up against all these multinational corporations. What can you do? Well, maybe we can get some of the farm fresh food from right here in Hoke and Scotland County on the plates in the schools. Maybe that'd be the first place you start. But after yesterday, frankly, there's a lot of wind in our sails. We got the Department of Agriculture, we got the EPA and HHS all pushing the same direction. And some of these multinational corporations are folding under the pressure. We're going to take this out of that, and we're going to take high fructose corn syrup out of the Coca-Cola.
Yep.
So it's going to happen too slow, but it's going to happen from this pressure, and the pressure is coming from the people. The people just had that amendment or that
mandate.
Drive.
The thing about the giving immunity to pesticide companies. That was taken out of a federal piece of legislation because the phones were ringing in Washington. So we need to continue more of that pressure. We need to do what the American people want us to do. But I think to some extent the wind is at our back, and the time is now to do some of these things. And interestingly, we think about everything being controlled at the federal level, but healthcare and a lot of this agriculture stuff and food regulation. Some of us at the state level, some of us at the federal level, but a lot of us at the state level. The practice of medicine is governed at the state level, not at the federal level.
Well, I was going to say, and you must have been reading my mind, we had the wind at our backs on these issues, but that's where it takes the strong state legislature to implement the laws, because at the federal, we know it's going to change. In 2028, there's going to be a new president regardless of what political party. And, like it or not, the president drives that sense of regulation and bureaucracy.
A lot of it.
Right. So that's where at the state level we have to enshrine those laws now, so that regardless of what the feds do, we've got it protecting our citizens here in North Carolina.
You know, and unfortunately, one of the things that I've never liked is that states will quickly fold when it comes to money. There were several requirements. We're talking about COVID-19, during the era of COVID-19, how the federal government got many states, a few exceptions, Texas, South Carolina, Florida. They didn't really fold that much, especially Florida, where these federal grants that we receive in the billions of dollars came with attachments. You will be wearing masks. You will be pushing COVID-19 vaccines and so on and so on. And so, you know, talking about the states have a lot to do with it, but when you don't have a good government system in whatever state, and they're eager to take that money, the people suffer. But most importantly, when the people don't get involved and they don't sound out loud, the government, whether it's a state, local, or federal level, the government gets to do what they want to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, it would be a target. I think it's maybe not the first target, but the legislation that's now in place that allowed Cooper to lock down the state, to close the schools and close the businesses and leave open the liquor stores are still there. They're still there, and it's just to pull a string, and here we go again. There was a piece of rulemaking going through the Department of Labor where, and I think we talked about this at another time, that was going to require every employer that had more than 10 or 20, I can't remember the number, 10 employees or something, to have a whole bunch of policy manuals and be the diagnostician and the treating person and send this one home and send this one to the hospital. And all that got shut down because of pressure from people like us. And in fact, I testified there that there was, around that as well. So, it's just, that's one thing that those laws need to come off the books. We don't need to be able to go through that again. I want to point out one other example. You said some good states, but South Dakota, Kristi Noem, her thing was, hey, look, folks, we got a bad virus. You might can breathe it on somebody else. Use your common sense and do if you want to have your church service, fine, but just think about it. Use your common sense. Respect the people. Respect your constituents. Respect the people every day to use their own common sense like they do every day.
And that is good leadership right there. And they're not being led by money. And unfortunately, a lot of states will buckle down when the government throws bags at you with a ton of money. But unfortunately, we know this to be true. The federal government never gives you my money because it's our money. The federal government don't make no money because they take our money. And when the federal government gives money to the state, and it's never free. There's always attachments. And then it's up to the state to enforce these attachments so they can keep the money. And
that's the thing. Washington's a big money changer. Goes up from the states and is funneled back in the form of regulation, bureaucracy, and quid pro quo, basically.
Yeah, but what else do they do in Washington? They take all our money and they send it back to whatever they want. And they spend it unwisely often. But when they run out, what do? They borrow and print.
Print more money.
And what does that do? That makes your dollar worth 50 cents.
Right.
And what has that done to the middle class? It's devastated the middle class. I mean, I've just had a child of mine, he's 39 years old, 5 kids. Struggle for him to get in the house because the houses are all overpriced and has to do with that inflation, that post-COVID inflation, all that deficit spending that ran all the prices up. And we find ourselves in a real affordability crisis. And guess what? It's bad where my son is in Sanford. It's bad in Raleigh, but it's even worse in Scotland and Hoke, where we don't get our share. We're not as politically connected. We're not politically as effective. Our current representation is not effective at getting resources our way that help the economic development, better jobs, better schools, all that kind of stuff. And why is that? Guess what? The red team's got the ball. They don't want to give money to the blue districts.
That's right.
So it doesn't have to be me, but I'm sorry, it's true. And people may not want me to say it, but if we have a Republican representative, we're going to get funding more easily. And we get funding for roads and schools and all that stuff that helps us.
That's just another thing. One of the sayings I have. That's facts on facts.
That's facts.
Those are just facts on facts. That's nationally. Biden did that during COVID, that he was willing to give money to the blue states and slow to give money to the red states. Those are facts on facts.
Right now, I was heartened to learn that the SNAP statistics, the food stamp statistics, that the administration in Washington's trying to gather so they can figure out how to make adjustments. 22 states have not given them the data. Thank goodness Raleigh has, and I don't know if that's because Dave Bullock's in charge of giving it to them, whatever. Thank goodness North Carolina has given them the stuff, because what do they want to do? They want to crack down on SNAP and say we're not buying.
Fraud.
The fraud is that, we're just hearing about all that, but we don't want to pay for sugary drinks. Maybe we'll buy you some lemonade and some milk and that kind of stuff, but we want to figure out what to pay for if we're going to make the food better for our kids. Let's subsidize the things that are going to make our kids healthier.
Absolutely.
So all that's a convoluted discussion. But
so talking about the economy, though, so right now we know that we're still operating on 2023 budget, state budget.
Oh my goodness!
And some of the issues there is the tax cuts. Some in the Senate don't want to cut or implement the automatic triggers. Right now we're at what was the numbers? 4%. We're trying to get.
In fact, we were sort of talking slightly about that, but according to the North State Journal of the Hoke edition, it specifically says that one of the major reasons why we can't get a budget approved is because the tax rates and related economic triggers are the key sticking points holding up the new state budget. And what it is apparently there's an issue between the current personal income tax is currently at 4.25%, and back in 2023, like Chris said, the 2023 budget, they changed it to where
it would automatically
the
fall.
rate is going to be at 3.99. It'll drop to that, and then 2027 is going to drop to 3.9. So apparently there's an issue with that, and I can think of only one thing, because the personal tax is going to be reduced. That only means one thing: the state is going to take in less money. I think that's what it is.
So the purpose of the question was, what is your ideas about these tax cuts? Even at the federal level, every tax cut comes with increased revenue. So what's your ideas about tax cuts?
If I could wave a magic wand, I would eliminate income tax. I don't think it's right that some computer and some person in D.C. knows that I gave to this church or this cause or that cause. Where we are right now, though, I think the practical thing is to support the cuts at the state level. They're on a trajectory to be reduced, hopefully to zero, and get us out of the income tax business in North Carolina. So I would support that. There's another tax out there that's looming that's going to catch Scotland County a few years ahead of Hoke County when the revaluation of property occurs, and every house is worth 150% or more of what it was. The taxes are going to skyrocket on property. And there's already, the Trump administration, DeSantis, Huckabee in Arkansas, Texas, there's a race to see who's going to eliminate property tax first. I don't know that we can get to eliminating it, but we ought to somehow reduce that burden. If you've been in your house 20, 30 years, you ought to be able to not pay rent on it anymore. And I would think that the best way to fund the government is through a consumption tax. That you need to not tax necessities or figure out some way to the subsistence level of income is not taxed, however you do that. But above that, let's put taxes on what you consume. Don't tax your investments. Don't tax your property. Don't tax your income, but tax consumption. We're a long way from that. That's kind of a theoretical thing. for right now, let's stay on the track to reduce income taxes. I very much support Destin Hall's move. He just established a committee in the House against some opposition, I believe, to look at reforming property tax, and I'm all for that.
And what it is that you don't really get involved in that, and I don't mean us, if you don't own property. And the biggest property that someone owns in Hoke County is a house. And it is so easy, as an example, and I don't mean to throw the county commissioners under the water, but that's just facts on facts. Every 5-7 years, I don't know exactly what's the gap. But let's just say, for example, every 5-7 years, it is guaranteed that I'm going to get a letter from the county tax assessor that my house has been reevaluated, and now it's going up, and now you got 30 days to push back and say why we should not charge you this amount, okay? And so they keep doing that mainly because obviously they want to get pay raises because, as the government grows, especially in Hoke County, the only way they can maintain the government structure that they have right now, which is really not large in comparison to other counties, is in fact property tax. Because we don't have, like Cumberland County, we don't have these major, and even Moore County, we don't have these major businesses that bring in mega money. We got a little Walmart in comparison to the big Walmart.
Well, you look at a county like Brunswick County, except for the beaches, they're kind of like us.
Yeah.
But at the beach, they got these $1 million properties. That's their tax base. So the taxes on the people that live in the rural area of Brunswick County, not so bad. Scotland has, if not the highest, one of the highest tax rates in the state because we don't have a base. Yeah. We don't have anything expensive to tax. And it's a little bit unfair. I would say that property tax keeps poor counties poor and rich counties rich. And I'm tired of seeing all the richness from Raleigh to Charlotte. And why aren't we getting our share of that? They're able to pay their teachers a bonus to suck them up that way, and so we don't have any way to get them to come here. Maybe all teachers across the state, I think they all need a raise, and that raise is stuck in this budget debate, and I'm not proud that they can't get a budget done in North Carolina, but why should a teacher in Raleigh make more than a teacher in Hoke County? And
they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because at the, it all boils down to a teacher that works in North Carolina, unless it's a private school, not a charter school, a private school, they're really, technically speaking, they're a employee of the state because the majority of the salary comes from the state.
Correct.
The supplement comes from the county. That's really a state employee. And everybody across, with the exception of maybe if they got higher education, maybe more certifications, obviously you should get paid for experience. Yeah. I don't think that a teacher that's been teaching for 10 years that comes in and gets hired, say, for example, in Hoke, should not start at the bottom. We need to pay these teachers accordingly, because if not, we're not going to get these teachers. But yeah, I do agree. All teachers in the state should start the same, but all teachers should get paid the same when they first start, and not $45,000 in Wake County starting pay versus $32,000 in Hoke County.
So now that we've switched focus, which was the idea, what is your ideas after traveling and doing some campaigning and stuff like that? What do you see across the district that you think would be your priority number one when you got to Raleigh?
I think the affordability issue, we've touched on it about taxes and all that, is critical, and that involves two sides of that, right? What do things cost and what are you making? Well, you need to make more. How do you make more? We talked about getting the other side of it, the tax burden. Better jobs. How do you get better jobs? You get economic development. How do you get economic development? You got to have roads and infrastructure. And we're battling with Fuquay Arena about whether or not we can keep the water flowing through the Cape Fear River that we're buying for Hoke County particularly.
Right.
And I will tell you, I went up there and testified about that. I don't know if any of my opponents were involved in that discussion, but I was in Raleigh testifying that Fuquay-Varina should not be allowed to take water from our source, the Cape Fear, and put it in the Neuse River. They've tried to do that before, by the way. Other counties, other cities up that way. So affordability is the number one thing, and we need to increase our wages by getting better jobs, and that's vocational training, and that's more industry here. And more industry is from roads and infrastructure. You got the water supply to support the industries. You need the roads. Seems very logical to me to put an interstate type connector that goes from I-95 to I-74 that runs from Rockfish to Laurinburg. Now, that's a pipe dream. It ain't going to happen in my first term, right?
Right.
Might not happen before I'm dead, but it would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pain in the butt. You got to drive south and then west and then south and then north and then west again.
And you got stoplight all the way from Laurinburg to Rockfish.
Just to add to what you're saying about the infrastructure, look at everybody that lives around this area knows we got a mega warehouse, Amazon warehouse. Where was it put at?
10 miles away.
Yeah,
on the
Bragg
interstate.
Boulevard, right at the 295 loop. Right
Cumberland
there.
County.
Cumberland County.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's at the time when that was going in, one of our commissioners said, well, we're too far from the interstate to have any effect. But now if you look at where 295's at in comparison to the business park, there's
a lot of
potential
opportunity.
there, except for we're just now doing the assessment to see how much it's going to cost to run public water to the facility.
Right. So that water issue, we need some sort of cooperation, some regional water authority. And I know there's a lot of people working on this. There's a Lumber River Commission, and there's a lot of.
Cape Fear
I'm
Valley,
I'm not the expert on all that, but you would think the representative from Scotland and Hoke would be working to try to get some cooperation so we can get the water that's in Scotland County up here to Hoke. So we got plenty.
So we've kind of went off a long time on the state stuff. So give us some closing thoughts on, as a representative, when you get to Raleigh, what will the effect on us here in the district be?
Well, I think I made the point that I'm going to have the relationships in Raleigh to bring more funding for all of these priorities to our district. It hasn't happened to date, and I think it can happen and will happen if I'm up there. That's kind of a big deal. I think I want to clarify a few things about the property tax discussion. The problem about property taxes, that's a local thing, and we want local control of our local issues and our local schools. So you can't, if you figure out another way to fund the local government, you can't lose that local autonomy. Let's see. We talked about infrastructure, affordability. We talked about certainly the medical issues. You may or may not know that the law stands right now that less qualified physicians can come to 92 of the 100 counties. They can't go to the 8 urban counties, but they can come to our county. We really don't have a health care. We do have somewhat access problem here, but I think the bigger fight there is the chronic disease epidemic, and we can work on that. Who better than us with the Research Triangle, the Center for Regenerative Medicine down at Wake Forest, all the new medical investments in Charlotte, and the pharmaceutical industry. We can bring them in as partners instead of, money grubbing industries to help us to improve the health of our community.
Yeah, and there's
stop the chronic disease epidemic.
There's a lot of auxiliary businesses and industry that satellites around that medical, facilities up there in Raleigh, and they're going as far south as Garner now.
Yeah, we need a rural health center, and we're better than our district. And why don't Chapel Hill or Duke or Wake Forest put a rural health education center in our district?
Yeah, I ran on that several years ago that there should be a UNC Hoke County, or a Rayford, but everybody's like, it'll never happen. And I said, well, with that attitude, it won't.
It never. Here's the issue. Some things never happen because key leadership don't try to make it happen.
They don't have the vision.
They just don't try to make it happen. You know that old saying, if you don't ask,
you'll never get it.
You already know what the answer is.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
And I will tell you, look up and down 401. You got Scotland Hospital. You got Hoke in Hoke. You got the
Cumberland,
Cape Fear Valley, and more regional. All First Health, all here. And guess what? They're relatively small, and they're relatively private, and they're relatively locally responsible institutions. And so that's been a big deal. There was no hospital here a few years ago. Now there's two. In Hoke County, and we got a great little hospital in
All right,
Scotland,
Ralph.
too.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have to wrap this up, but I just want to remind everyone that next Thursday at 7 p.m. at PK's Grill is the Hoke County Republican Party monthly meeting. This Saturday at the Presbyterian Church downtown on 308 South Main Street is the Open Door Soup Kitchen Chili Cook-Off fundraiser. Come out, costs $5. You get all the chili you can eat, and then you vote for the best one. With that, this is Chris Holland.
Ruben Castellon.
Getting to the facts across the state, around the world, and at home in Rayford, North Carolina. The Roundtable Talk Podcast. Brought to you in part by Rayford Guns, the Hoke County edition of the North State Journal, the Libra Initiative of North Carolina, and our flagship station, WCLN Christian 105.7. Be sure to like, share, and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. The Roundtable Talk Podcast.